Hello and welcome to another Zwift Racing League video report. Zwift Racing League brought to you each week by WTRL. This week, the Herd of Burning Bidets take on the final race of the current series, Race 8. It is Paris, it is the Champs-Élysées, and there's 7 laps, 7 sprints. Let's go. Your bidets this week are Brian O'Connor, Tim Powell, Morgan Brewer, Alan Richardson, and Guy DeBell, as well as your narrator, Brent Robinson. As previously mentioned, the course this week is the Zwift Paris course in the Lutece Express direction, which takes us up past the Arc de Triomphe in an uphill direction and then down for the sprint 7 times. Before the race, much of the chatter was whether or not it would look like these guys.
And inside the final kilometre, Cavendish seemed to lose his lead-out man. Miguel Mercado, a couple of places off to the right-hand side. Mike Turnus are doing a great job for Wout van Aert. Phillips are waiting on his wheel. Cavendish in the green. Kreipel was there as well. But once Wout van Aert hit the front, Cavendish would be boxed in and nobody would be able to come around. No 35th record.
With probably some of us hoping it would look a little more like this. Alright, here we go. This is after the first hill on the lead-in lap. Our race was relatively calm. I did about a 4.5, which isn't too crazy up for this first 3 minutes and 15 seconds. So everybody in the bidets was in the group, and here we go on the sprint. Brian O'Connor's just in front of me. I did tell him it's time to go right about that corner, and you can see he's going. I'm on his wheel. This was, I don't know that it was an intentional plan to have a lead out here, but it sure worked. As you'll see, we get a pretty good result on this sprint at the line. So as we watch the regroup on the downhill, you'll see that I scored second on this first sprint. Brian O'Connor scored 7th. He's pretty happy with that. You will see lots of the Reinheisen and French Fusion guys. Get used to that through the race. Reinheisen guys are in first place. They're a very strong team. Here is the fastest through speeds or times after that first sprint. You can see in this Bernstein from Reinheisen and Portelli from FFZ. Get used to seeing their names. They will be in these results a lot as we go along. Spoiler alert, my 7th doesn't hold up. And then we look at the total points. Actually, after that first sprint, we were in 2nd place, so that would have been pretty amazing if it held up. Let's see how the rest of the race goes. So you can see here in the regroup, basically all the bidets are in. You can see Guy in the white hat, Alan in the orange hat, and Morgan in the black helmet just above, and Brian and Tim are just in front of us. So good job by all the bidets after lap 1 to get back in the group. Our strategy was basically hold the fastest group close to the front as long as you can, so lead in lap, everybody's on that. Fast forwarding here to the top of the climb on lap 1 leading into sprint 2, you can see that an OTR rider, Mason, and a Scottish rider have made a bit of an attack off the front, and Brian and I are chasing that attack down. And you'll see the pack come around me, and we sit in here around the top of the arc. I don't know if you're going to see Tim or Morgan or Alan or anyone else in this group as they come through, but essentially we were all still in the lead group around the arc the second time. I had a feather when I was chasing that guy down. That's one of the reasons I was at the front of that chase group, so I've got no power up for this sprint, but all the heavyweight sprinters are in this lead group. Thiem, Lagardère, Portelli. So here we take off for sprint 2. I think it's a real credit probably to the tightness of this field that I really did not know in this sprint how close or far I was from the points, and the little display on the right is of almost no help. So yeah, tough group, good sprinting by everyone. And here you can see their results. No herd riders in the top 10 on this one, unfortunately. Good job by the Reinheisen guys, as always. And here are the FTS results. Again, my 7th has now been pushed out with power-ups and everything on lap 2. And you can see Bernstein and Portelli setting up their multiple results and fastest through as certainly the 2 strongest sprinters. So you can see we've been pushed down to 5th in the total points after the 2nd sprint on lap 1. And as you've been watching the Gree group, you could have seen all the bidets are coming through, except for I think Guy DeBell gets dropped from the lead group on this lap. So good job by all the bidets to get ready for the next lap. Here we are on lap 2, 3rd climb. You'll see this Scott rider with the feather. He's making his attack. This is where I told my teammates that if I was going to make attacks, I was basically going to make them too, was on this part of the climb. Unfortunately, I didn't recognize it a bit soon enough because I really would like to attack and held this racer's wheel as we go along, because what you'll see happens is I lead a bit of a chase up here, decide I'm not going to catch this guy with no feather. Maybe I should have used my steamroller to get up there as well, because you're going to see me fall back into the group, but I've probably burned at least a half match here, so that when we fast forward again to the closer to the sprint, you'll see, if you can see on the mini-map, that rider who attacked is off the front. I've triggered my power-up, but I clearly, I think, send my sprint too late to be contested. I still put a effort in to get to the front to try it, but I'm well out of contention for the top 10 points on this sprint, and yeah, so not terribly good racing. Good racing by that Scott rider on the attack though. So here are the results after that sprint. You can see that Grieve gets the first across the line points, and a bunch of Reinheisen and French riders pretty much gather up most of the rest of them. In terms of FTS, you can see that Portelli and Bernstein, the French and the Rheinheisen, are really cementing their position. In terms of the overall totals at this point, we remained in 5th place, although you can see the stronger teams are really starting to pull away from us. It is close to the underpass part of the course, and at this point, Tim, Brian, Morgan, and I are all in this front group. And Alan Richardson, if you can see on the right-hand side, is just seconds back. And he was as far as 6 seconds back in this group behind, chasing on. And there he is. They've caught on. So that was a massive, massive chase to get this front group by Alan. And you'll see it was important later in the race, too. Here we are now at the climb in lap 3, climb number 4. You can see there's a little attack happening. Some of these riders sent off feathers to go off the front, and Morgan is chasing it down. I'm chasing the attack down. Again, in hindsight, I think this might have been my biggest mistake in this race, was leading too many of these chases on the attacks instead of just letting the group pull me back into them. But anyway, you'll see Morgan is certainly chasing this attack, and he goes right to the front, and I think he was going to try and potentially hold off the group. It doesn't quite work out as the group comes around here, and then I send my steamroller, but I think if anything, this one I start too early because I start my sprint here, and you'll see I fade. I don't know, my numbers aren't that high early, so I guess I'm just too tired. Maybe that attack, chasing that attack, that's what I mean, drained me out. So we go through the sprint here. If you can tell exactly which place I finish in, you did better than I can do while I'm sprinting. I had no idea. I just knew I was freaking close, but results say no points for the bidets on this one either. It was points mostly for Rheinheisen and French at the top again. And when we look at the fastest through, you can see that Portelli and Bernstein have gotten 5 of the top 6 results. Portelli with another one in 9th, and then a few other racers have done well to sneak in there, and that would be the end of the changes for FTS, so we won't see those again. And then in totals after the 4th sprint, you can see that the Rheinheisen and Fusion continue to cement their positions up top, but the bidets have held strong in 5th for one more lap. So back on the regroup, you can see I am aggressively sucking these wheels on the regroup, and if you look at the right, you'll see Alan Richardson is just a handful of seconds off the back of this group, and there he is coming through again. Another strong regroup after the 4th sprint. So Alan has done a great job to sit in this group. Again, look, there's like 31 riders, 32 riders maybe in this front group, and Alan's with them. So Alan, Tim, Brian, and I were all in this front group, but I think we had lost Morgan. You'd see he's 15 seconds back. That effort had warm out. So good effort by Morgan, good attack, and we're all ready for the next lap. So here we are. This is just past the underpass part of the route. You can this is a lesson to the dangers of sitting at the back of the pack. You can see I am aggressively wheel sucking yet again, but as I move up to the front, you'll notice there's 2 riders off the front. I think one is the OTR rider, Mason. The other one might be, I think it's a Dirty Beast Tiger Shark rider. And kind of as I come through, you can see them up there. I make the decision to sit back in. They were already probably a little bit too far, but they do hold off that attack all the way around. You just see them up around the corner in front of us, and you can see it in the mini map too at the top right. But so that attack held off, and if I'd been at the front, I might have been able to go with it and pick up points here, because as you'll see from this sprint, those guys go through 1-2. So well done to Mason and Zelkovich for an attack. And I gotta say, I'm always happy when a long-range attack works, because it changes the dynamics of the race. So that's always good. Here we go across the sprint line, the finish. Yeah, and here's the results, and you can see that this time I managed to sneak in there at 8th place, score some points for the team, so that was nice to do. And then when you look at the totals with that attack from OTR in the first place to Mason, they had passed us as well. Look at that Dirty Beast Tiger Sharks and Holman Colin. They were hot behind us heading into the second last lap. And here we are on the regroup after that sprint. You can see Brian joining the front group, and just in behind you can see in the bottom right the names scrolling through, and you will see Tim Powell join the front group. So there's the 3 of us back in as we headed on to lap 5. And that is when fatigue, lack of oxygen, whatever it is, started getting onto us. In a second, I actually left my microphone on this time when I recorded this race, which isn't usual, because you'll hear the trainer noise as to why I don't usually record that. But this is what I exclaimed during the race.
Somebody's singing? Jesus Christ.
Pardon the language, but that was because literally Brian O'Connor was singing this. Crazy stuff from Ryan. At least he was having fun. And here we go for climb number 6 on lap 5. You'll see the French rider attack. I was definitely close to him and saw him going this time. I just was too tired to chase. So this attack goes away off the front, and there's kind of a half-hearted chase that forms, but nothing really serious, and I decided it was not worth my time to be at the front of that group, and I was going to sit in and follow the move till we got up to the arc, which we did, and you can see there, and there's a 3rd rider now that's just sent off. So when this 3rd rider went, that I didn't think I had a crack at, so I go to the front here and send off my steamroller. Second, there it goes. So I definitely was going to try and catch up to that move. I guess take your pick as to whether this was early, late, whatever the story may have been. In any event, I start to send this sprint from here. That at this point in the race was definitely too long a sprint for me. You'll see me come off the power well before the end of the sprint, and any number of riders go around me, and I did not score points on this sprint either. I was just too gassed, frankly. So that was tough. here are the results from that sprint. Yeah, so the two top spots, those were the early breakaway. Third spot was the later break, and then the rest of them are all the strong sprinters. So those are some good points for the French there. And that Holmenkollen, that'll be important. We look at the total result. Right here, you can see that Holmenkollen with that 9 points actually had moved past us into 6th place, and we were pushed back down to 7th. And yeah, the OTR guys picked up a few more points and moved in front of us as well. So that was actually kind of a bit of a tough lap for us. As we get here into the final lap, you'll see there's some attacking shenanigans that go off the front. I don't think anything really comes of it, but as we go along here, pay attention to that. But the more important thing to note at this point is that in behind, you can't see it now because I'm on the front, but essentially the next closest rider to this front group is Alan Richardson, and he's basically, I think, solo at this point. So he's trying to hold position in about 32nd spot, I think. And then in the group behind, there's a big group behind, probably like 20 riders, and Morgan is in that group. And Alan somehow, I think he just sees his name get to the top of the list in that group in behind. And Alan says to Morgan, "Get off the front, you twat." Not to paraphrase too much. At which point Morgan explained that he was just trying to get up the underpass and that he wasn't trying to be on the front. But in any event, we all laughed. It was all good fun. But yeah, if you're race tips, if your teammate is up the road, especially if they're solo, don't be pulling a group up to them before the end of the race, especially this late in the race when all you're doing is pulling people up to beat them in a sprint. So astutely observed Alan. Perhaps slightly more diplomatic language occasionally might be useful. Probably don't recommend that to your teammates, but it was all good. We all had a laugh about it. So you remember before I'd said there were some shenanigans at the front. You can see here there are 2 riders that had started up a breakaway, and definitely the pack is stringing out here heading into the last sprint. One of the ones who definitely went out the front was, I believe, Mason. The other one is Theme, who's one of the Reinheisen guys who's incredibly strong. I don't know who that third rider is. It might have been Fish from the Scots, but you'll see. Of course, there's a super tactical issue here because, of course, we're going to pass this sprint line, and then there's only about a kilometer and a half, a little less than a kilometer and a half to the finish line. So this is this OTR rider in the red and black with the old man hat. That is actually Mason, who had led that attack off the front. So here we come up to the sprint, and you'll see, looks like both Tim and I are in position for points, and in fact we were. Coming in 8th and 9th across the line at that point. So here we go. The kind of run up to the finish is on. As we watch the run up to the finish, just quickly, we are going to hand out the first ever Burning Bidet Awards. The first award to Brian O'Connor, the Cheerleader Award for always staying positive and leading the cheer for our team. Next up for Tim Powell, the Steady As She Goes Award for being reliable, always working hard, and staying cool and calm under pressure. Next up for Morgan Brewer, we have the Brave as a Lion Award for taking on sprint challenges, trying to stick with riders who are a lot bigger, putting a higher watts on team time trials, never complaining, and always trying things that maybe other riders wouldn't have tried, and doing it bravely. So here we'll just take a pause from the awards for a minute to watch the run into the final. This is the last few hundred meters. Brian, Tim, and I are in the final group and going for obviously as far up as we can get for the most points as we can get. And you'll see Tim and I come very close, and the truly remarkable thing about that is according to Zwift Power, we actually finished tied to the 1,000th of a second. So we'll quickly skip ahead to the final results. You can see here that Brian O'Connor had a massive 8th place finish out of that group sprint, getting 25 points. Tim and I, of course, with our tie, each got 20 points. We'll go through it. We're actually watching here Alan Richardson come in. He ended up coming in 33rd for 16 points, and Morgan Brewer came in closely behind him at 35th, winning his group sprint. I'm sorry I don't have video of it, but for 15 points. Guy DeBell finishes at 8 points. We'll talk more about that in a minute, but just back to the awards. For Alan Richardson for sticking around team time trials. This race in Paris, longer than anyone could have imagined, or I bet he thought possible when he first started this series, but we all knew he could do. We have the Tough as a Barnacle Award. And so finally moving just to the final standings, though those last finishing points that everybody worked so hard to get actually did move us up from 7th to 5th place for that race, and that 5th place finish held us in 6th place for the series, a couple points behind ABR and OTR, but you know, I think a really good showing for our team that we can be super proud of. So as we watch finally finishing off Guy DeBell here, and just to let you know how this was going for Guy, we're all sitting around, have a bit of a chaz, we're watching him finish, and suddenly he's like, "Oh, I'm almost there, I'm almost there." We're like, "Yeah, you're doing great, Guy, no problem." And then he's like, "Oh, I'll help you in a minute." And we're like, "Help us, we're fine." He was like telling his kids to get lost because he had to drive them to school. Guy lives in Australia. He came to us from ATP as a bit of a loner. He finished every race he entered, even though he wasn't, you know, always the fastest racer in every race, but he was a super great person to race with, a great teammate. And for Guy DeBell, we have the absolute Heart of a Champion award. Great stuff, Guy. Thank you to all the bidets for just a terrific season, for letting me be your captain this year, and to everyone who's watched these videos this year, thanks so much. We hope everyone had a great season of ZRL racing, and we hope to see you all out there on Zwift and hear you on Discord. So take care, everybody.